with 2 wins. The men's team taking care of business against Vanderbilt on Saturday, never in doubt for the Vols at home. And then the Lady Vols getting a win against Ole Miss on Sunday. We'll talk basketball coming out of the weekend. We always have time for football on the show. Tennessee baseball opening up with a sweep, a very easy sweep. Not a surprise there against Hofstra this past weekend. We have changes that also shouldn't be surprising to anybody coming very soon, it looks like, in the world of college football. We'll get to that, and we invite you to join us today, as we always do. We would love for you to call or text to be a part of the show. 865-656-9900 is how you can join us. What do you think coming out of the weekend? Looking ahead to final 2 weeks, not even that now, of the month of February. March will be here soon. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. Swain, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, man. Mondays are always a lot easier when Tennessee is whooping tail over the weekend. That's what happened in a couple different sports for Tennessee. So starting off the week the right way, Josh Ward.
It's never really in doubt, right, that Tennessee would win on Saturday against Vandy?
No, I had doubts. After the first half. I mean, Tennessee going through that slump. Vanderbilt was getting to the cup, making shots. And I was nervous. I was worried, but Rick Barnes said the right things at halftime, and we got the second half that we deserve. Went out, got the win in the second half. Nice performance by Zakai Ziegler and crew. Chazanier was great as well. Those two guys combined for almost 50 points. Makes it a lot easier when you're able to do that.
Yeah, we talked about Friday. Tennessee cannot go 0-4 against Kentucky and Vanderbilt. Fully understanding that there was the possibility that could happen. It was more of a do not recommend going 0-4. And Tennessee was in a position where that could have happened. The response in the second half was necessary. We'll get into trying to make that a 40-minute mindset, which can be easier said than done, I'll point out ahead of time. But the mindset and the way Tennessee played in the second half is exactly what Tennessee needed. And the Vols got out of there with the win, with a week to get ready for a big road game against Texas A&M. Texas A&M, one of the higher ranked or projected teams in terms of seeding with the NCAA tournament. That's coming up on Saturday. So Tennessee has the whole week, no midweek game this week to get ready for that game on Saturday. Still there.
He's still there. So you got to defend him. I remember a couple years ago, he couldn't miss to open the game. He was on fire, man. And so you got to contain him. A&M is not the best three-point shooting team in the country, but they're capable of making shots if you allow them to. In the first half of the Vanderbilt game, we had guys being wide open, and you can't let that happen.
Yeah, the energy was not where it needed to be in the first half against Vanderbilt. I think everybody recognizes that. It was in the second half. There were a few moments where it felt like, okay, it's either a wake-up moment or that tells you Tennessee has locked back in when there was the double tech with Zakai Ziegler, threw the ball back kind of at Carey, and then Okpara when he would not let go of the basketball during the tie-up, lying there on the floor. Those were a couple of moments that I thought stood out in terms of Tennessee being in the right mindset compared to everything that was wrong in the first half against Vanderbilt this past weekend.
Yeah, I mean, even the announcer mentioned how the crowd was quiet at the beginning of the game, and you know how you play coming out can impact the crowd, but the crowd can also impact the play. And so it just wasn't a great combination at the beginning of the game for Tennessee fans or the players. But things got rolling when they needed to, and Tennessee was able to get the win again behind some great performances by two of your better players at the guard position, Chaz and Zakai Ziegler. Shout out to Felix at par. I thought he played a big role as well too, man. Just the hustle, the toughness, those non-hustle, those stats that don't show up, those hustle stats. I thought Felix really stuffed the stat book in that category, and so it was a gutsy win. Vanderbilt, they have one of those players, man, in Carey, who he's just strong in the paint, and we've seen Florida strong in the paint, and Auburn strong in the paint. When you play against teams that have strong front court, guys who are not necessarily tall, because Felix is tall. I was standing next to him yesterday. I mean, he made me feel like a little kid. But also possesses the strength. They have given Tennessee some issues. And so Texas A&M will have some of those guys as well, too. But Tennessee was able to overcome that carry performance, unlike they were able to do in Nashville a couple weeks ago.
We appreciate you being with us. However, you are tuning in to today's show. We're on 99.1 The Sports Animal, AM 640 The Sports Monster. You can watch live with us on the Sports Animal YouTube channel, or if you are listening streaming live or on demand somewhere, you can always listen on demand thanks to Beatty Chevrolet. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Monday afternoon. We'll look back at the weekend over the next few hours. It's a President's Day holiday, but we have a lot to discuss. 5 games remaining for Tennessee. A&M, by the way, will play tomorrow night on the road against Mississippi State. So the Aggies have a midweek game. Tennessee will have the week to prepare for Saturday's game at Texas A&M. Next Tuesday, Tennessee will play at LSU, and then Tennessee will host Alabama Saturday, March 1st. Massive game in Knoxville on March 1st. And then Tennessee will close out the final week of the regular season at Ole Miss on Wednesday, March 5th, and home for South Carolina. That'll be Senior Day, Saturday, March 8th. So 5 games to go. 3 Saturdays remain between now and the postseason. Swain, I'm continuing to sense the either fear, trepidation, however you would describe it, about March basketball because of what could happen. You could be one and done. I do want to offer a reminder that that applies to everybody. So everybody has the same risk. If you're entering March and you want to go on a run, of course, Tennessee's one of those teams that wants to go on a run all the way. Some will be happy to get to the tournament. You make the big dance, that's worth celebrating. You make the Sweet 16, that could be historic for some programs. Tennessee, the goal is to go further, I recognize. But again, Saturday, even with Tennessee getting a nice win against Vanderbilt, I heard some of now we know what's going to happen in 4 or 5 weeks when Tennessee makes the NCAA tournament. And maybe we do, but not necessarily.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, for every team in the tournament, they're going to lose except for one. So, if you're banking on your team being the team that will be eliminated, then you're probably right, because only one team is not going to be eliminated, and that's the team that's last standing, which will be the national champion. So that's the sport that it is, basketball. It is a tournament sport where you have a tournament postseason to determine the national champion, and football this past year moved towards that with the 12-team playoff. The difference is it's fast-paced. You can lose by one play. And, in football, although you can lose by one play, it's just not the same. People don't approach the game of football the same as they do basketball, even now having a tournament elimination style postseason. But it's the way it's always been. The only difference, I think, for Tennessee fans is you have a coach that in a program that's in it. They're in the conversation year in and year out. And so now it makes you care more. And I think sometimes it's easier not to care because you are afraid to get hurt. If you don't care, you can guard your feelings. You can guard against disappointment. You're not disappointed if you don't care. But I think some people choose not to care because they know that their team is going to be eliminated. And that's just the way it is. They're going to get eliminated except for one. Hopefully, Tennessee is one of those teams that can be the last team standing, but that's very difficult to do when you look at how Tennessee is constructed and the ways that they've lost this year. But it's possible. When you have the number one defense in the country, when you have the ability to put up points and win against Missouri and Florida and come toe-to-toe with Auburn, you have a chance. You just never know.
If you're going to be a fan of a team, especially of a team that you want to compete at the highest level, you have to be willing to be hurt.
You have to.
It's just part of the deal.
It's part of the deal. You have to be willing to be disappointed, because I don't think there's a fan of any team that has never experienced a letdown, disappointment, anger, sadness. Those are feelings that you're supposed to feel, emotions you're supposed to feel. And if you don't, that means you're just not fanning the right way.
We'll talk about as the afternoon goes along how you feel with 5 games to go in the regular season. Tennessee coming off the win against Vanderbilt. It was a 1-1 week in SEC play, losing at Kentucky, winning at home against Vanderbilt. What do you think? 865-656-9900 moving forward. Rick Barnes will talk about the mindset that is needed this time of year. Teams that want to go on a deep run. Tennessee is among them. What it takes from a mental standpoint in reaction to what happened on Saturday. So you'll hear from Rick Barnes this afternoon. We want to hear from you. We'll talk college football. Change is coming. It's a matter of when it's going to happen, but it doesn't seem to be much of a question of who is going to force that change. We will explain that. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward. We continue on Josh and Swain. 865-656-9900 to join us. Matt in Knoxville texted in after our segment and discussion about Tennessee basketball and looking ahead to the NCAA tournament. We have 3 weeks to go here in the regular season in college basketball. Matt asked this question: do you think Tennessee has more ingredients that make them a title contender or more ingredients that put them at risk for an early exit?
They have the ingredients to make a run, and if they win the national championship, I think that means that there are a couple teams that are more complete, have been eliminated, and have they're not in the way. So like Tennessee, I think is like tier two right now. I think Auburn, I think Duke. I think there's some other programs that have the defense and offense. And right now, Tennessee has lapses where it's 3 or 4 minutes where they're not scoring the basketball. And when you play against top tier opponents, I think that can be the separator. We've seen it so far this season in SEC play versus Kentucky, versus Auburn. We've seen it, but that doesn't mean that you're going to see it in the tournament. Like we saw a Conzo Martin team that was terrible to watch offensively. They had played poor. People were out on them, and then they didn't get all the way to the Michigan game because they played the same way. They played different. They played better, and so that can happen for this Tennessee basketball team where we've seen glimpses. We've seen stretches where offensively they've played well. They just have had also glimpses where they've played poorly offensively. So we could see either team offensively in the tournament, but if we see the team that was complete offensively against Missouri, then yeah, this team can go really deep. We just don't know, and that's the part that's frustrating. Like that's what makes people frustrated is when you don't know. You don't know from game to game. You don't know what team you're going to get sometime, and I understand some of the criticism that comes this team's way because of that.
What defines an early exit? Is that first weekend? Is that before the Elite Eight? What's an early exit for Tennessee? An early exit is going to partly depend on seeding. Like if you win a game, if you're a double-digit seed, then you found some success in the NCAA tournament. Tennessee, if it goes 1-1 and misses the Sweet 16, that would be a disappointment. I think everybody agrees there. But what's an early exit for this team?
First, I would
they're
say,
unlikely to win the national title, right? So you operate under assumption at some point they probably lose. So what's an early exit for Tennessee?
I mean, I think anything Sweet 16 or lower. I mean, first weekend, not getting to the Sweet 16, not. I would say first weekend. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I would say first weekend for sure. I think we would find split opinions if Tennessee advanced to the Sweet 16 but then lost there. That would right now project as a 2 versus 3 matchup. Maybe that depends. Do you go out in the Sweet 16 against a 3 seed, or do you go out against a team that a 6 seed or an 11 seed where you feel like going in you have a bigger advantage? That could factor in, and obviously we don't know that until you get to that third round of the NCAA tournament. I think Elite Eight or beyond is tremendous success. The goal is to go to the Final Four and compete for a national championship. I recognize that. I want to make sure I have a pretty good grasp on what counts as an early exit, because if it's first weekend, to answer Matt's question, I think Tennessee has more ingredients on advancing out of the first weekend than getting bounced.
Oh, 100%.
Because Tennessee will be a pretty big favorite going in there and will have a talent advantage and should just be a better team. That doesn't automatically advance you. You got to go win the games. I think that's pretty obvious too. But I think part of it depends on what the goal is, or what goal is not right. Again, goal is to go to the Final Four. But what do you expect versus what would you be willing to accept if Tennessee gets bounced?
Yeah, I'm looking at Tennessee's path last year, right? Tennessee was a number 2 seed, and they played a 15th seed. It's happened, but I doubt Tennessee's going to lose to a 15th seed. And then the winner of Tennessee's opponent for the next round is between a 7th seed and a 10th seed. And last year, that was Texas. Okay? The winner of that, the next round, excuse me, the next round opponent would be the winner between a 6th and 11th seed and the winner between a 3rd and a 14th seed. And Tennessee played the 3rd seed in Creighton. So, like, I don't think, and I'm pretty confident when I say this, I just don't think this team is a team that's going to get bounced in the first weekend, man. They're just too good to be bounced in the first weekend. Now it gets more difficult after the first weekend, and you have to be more complete. You can't afford. Let's say chalk plays out here, and Tennessee is a number 2 seed, and they play the 3rd seed team in the Sweet 16. That 3rd seed team is a better opponent, and you can't afford to have an off night shooting. You can't afford that at that point because it gets a little bit more difficult. So, yeah, like you just have to play more complete when the opponents improve.
Totally agree. Yeah. Vanderbilt's, I need to look at the update, but they're probably in the 10 seed range,
Yep,
right?
that's
That's the level opponent Tennessee came back against. Now, did that at home, and you don't get that luxury in the NCAA tournament. But, yeah, I agree with you. Right now, if I had to say, is Tennessee advancing to the Sweet 16, I would bet yes pretty confidently
What?
before I would say no. Of course, they could get bounced. And if that happens, everybody's going to agree that's disappointing if they lose in the second round. Lose in the first round in a 2 versus 15 matchup, don't need to explain what that would be.
What?
But so Matt's question is, do they have more ingredients to go on a run, to be a title contender, or to be at risk of an early exit? They have the 7th best odds right now to make the Final Four. So I think the answer is to go make a run at the title. I understand the skepticism, but I think that's just natural when you are talking about trying to go on a run, win 4 or 5 games, and that is so difficult to do for any team, no matter how good you are. Think about Auburn. Like, Auburn's the number 1 team in the country, and if I had to bet, I would bet on them making it to the Final Four right now. But nothing's guaranteed. Auburn hasn't advanced to the Sweet 16 since they went to the Final Four 6 years ago. That's the only time that they've gone to the second weekend under Bruce, which is incredible. And he's had remarkable success there. They've gone on one run at Auburn, but I don't think Auburn's having the conversation. They're the number 1 team in the country. Why would they? Could be a response. But just last year, they got bounced in the first round. It was a terrible loss. And here they are in a position to go on a run again. And I imagine the conversation down there on the Plains is, hey, we're going to go on a run. We're going to go win it all. Probably easier to have that conversation when you're coming out of the weekend having won at Alabama. That was a really impressive showing by Bruce Pearl's team on Saturday.
No, it really was. It was a dang good game, which makes me feel pretty good about Tennessee's chances, playing against Alabama.
That's a huge game for Tennessee a week from Saturday, March 1st, when Tennessee hosts Bama.
Yeah. Mark Sears is struggling taking care of the basketball. Something I said on this program days ago that played out again. He was struggling. They were giving him some tough cover, and he just wasn't able to shake loose when the game was within reach. I mean, late in the game, he made some shots, but it was too late by that point. But yeah, like I agree with you, man. I understand this team can be frustrating sometimes. It really can be. But at the end of the day, man, you look at kind of the pecking order in college basketball. Tennessee's right there. Like, Tennessee is one of the top 5, 10 teams in the country, and they really have a chance to go win this thing. And they just have to shoot the basketball better and more consistent. And with Zakai Ziegler, with how he shot the ball against Vanderbilt, and how he shot the ball, honestly, since he's been back from the game where he was out against Florida, this team has an opportunity to do that. I just want Zakai to be mad like he was in the second half against Vanderbilt, and I had to find out. Okay, like what was said? Like, was it a Vanderbilt player that said something? Did he do something? We know Zakai got the technical foul for throwing the ball at the Vanderbilt player. Like, why was Zakai so upset? Because we know that's when he played his best half of basketball offensively all season long. And to simplify what was said, Rick Barnes basically called him trash. That's what Rick Barnes did. Hey man, he didn't say it per se, but that's how it was interpreted. Rick Barnes calls Zakai trash, and that's all it took. And so I'm gonna hit up Zakai before every game and say, hey man, you trash.
You should Photoshop him in like a garbage collector outfit. Say, hey,
Trash.
or me put him in a trash bin. I don't know.
Trash, man.
Whatever would make him angriest.
That seems to be what we need to do, man. Just question his importance.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why Rick was getting on them the way he was because, and I said this last week, what Vanderbilt did to us and how their guards were torching us. And I mean, listen, they kind of did it again, but Zakai was able to make enough plays and us get enough stops to pull out the win. But Zakai was falling for shot fakes too much. He was jumping all around, just wasn't carrying out his responsibilities according to the scout report defensively. And that's why Zakai found himself sitting on the bench for a 4 or 5 minute stretch, which we haven't seen too much of this season. And if you can hold your best player accountable, you can get onto your best player, that means a lot. I remember when Grant Williams was getting torched by Rick Barnes, and Grant Williams did a great job of allowing himself to be coached. And that was another example of your best player being coached the hardest. You have to have that on a team. Doesn't matter what sport it is. When your best player can be coached the hardest and be held accountable, just like everyone else, that means the culture is good, and that's good for the locker room.
We'll continue talking about what happened on Saturday. Tennessee's comeback against Vanderbilt as the Vols look ahead to Texas A&M this upcoming Saturday, and the NCAA tournament now coming up in just a few weeks. We continue inviting you to join us. Call or text at 865-656-9900 right here on Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward, Joel Silverberg producing for us today. Swain, this would be quite a game. Houston had a big win in Arizona on Saturday. We had a text. Maybe it's just me. I'm hopeful for a Tennessee versus Houston matchup. Might be the ugliest offensive basketball game of all time, topping the Georgetown game. Tennessee scoring 45 points years ago. Houston is really good. Yeah, that would be a fight between Rick Barnes' team and Kelvin Sampson's team, two of the best coaches in the game. Tennessee ranks number 1 in the nation in defense. Houston ranks number 3 in the nation defensively.
Yeah, that would be. I think they struggle scoring the ball more than we do, but they are tough, man. They do a really good job of doubling the basketball during ball screens. Man, they're long, they're athletic. They are a problem for sure.
So Tennessee right now projected 2 seed. Florida's in a really good position, continuing to win. Alabama lost to Auburn, but Auburn's the number 1 team in the country. That'll take Alabama out of the number 1 spot in the coaches poll. But as it goes to NCAA tournament seeding, Alabama's still in a really good position. But Tennessee gets to host Bama March 1st, and the last 3 games for Alabama are Tennessee on the road, Florida at home, at Auburn. Still a return trip to Auburn for Alabama coming up. Florida has won 4 games in a row, including a win at Auburn. That's Auburn's only loss in SEC play. So Florida in a really good position. They have Oklahoma next tomorrow. We talked last week, Swain, about Oklahoma not great, and that's continued. They got destroyed by Missouri last Wednesday, and then they lost to LSU at home on Saturday. So we talked about if there's a team that could maybe go the wrong direction here the rest of the way, Oklahoma would be that team. And boy, have they gone the wrong direction since we had that conversation.
Yeah, they're just not good, man. And the fight's not there. We saw that when Tennessee played them there. I mean, they had just come off a tough loss on the road to Auburn, and they were hosting a top 5 team. And when you have the opportunity to host a top 5 team like that should bring out your fans. That should motivate your players to pull off the upset and maybe have an opportunity to storm the court. But Oklahoma they didn't want any part of that, man. The crowd was lifeless, and the play was lifeless from the players. So that tells me that they probably need to go in a different direction and find someone that can energize that fan base and help that fan base with a pulse in that program.
Dwayne, one more idea to back up the conversation last segment with Zakai Ziegler trying to motivate him. Rick Barnes essentially saying, hey, that first half, that's trash basketball right there. It's time to bring back the Tennessee trash can.
Mm-mm. No, I like just calling him trash.
Have somebody go grab it, bring it into the locker room. What do you think?
No, we need
around?
No, don't ever bring that back. Just
is it packed away with the orange dog and maybe the print of opportunity is now here?
I kind of like the orange dog.
I liked him.
I like the orange dog. And I had no problem with opportunities now here either. I had no problem with that. Just because Dooley was unsuccessful as a coach doesn't mean like everything that he said was wrong. Same thing with Butch. Like everything that he said wasn't wrong. There were just a lot of things that were corny that we will never repeat and never adopt and never make part of the program again. But some of the stuff wasn't that bad. And honestly, some of that stuff is kind of repurposed from other coaches who were successful that had some of the same messaging. You just kind of
Tennessee was not the only place before at that time or since then to do brick by brick.
Correct.
A lot successful people have done it. Tennessee, by the way, had success right after. It's just what happened there. Yeah. You're right. The opportunity nowhere now here is made fun of more so after the fact, or people didn't like it at the time because of the results on the field.
Yeah, I mean, opportunities now here is. It's something that we all could adopt and learn something from, in our daily lives. So I actually like that one. And then the orange dog is just, hey man, point to the positive energy. The orange dog was the positivity that you needed to focus on when things went wrong. So I had no problem with that. But as far as like the trash can, Josh, we don't need that. I mean, we saw what Zakai Ziegler did after Rick Barnes challenged him and told him that he wasn't playing well and essentially called him trash. Like we don't need to do anything else. We don't need a prop. We just call him trash. Just say that at the beginning of the game. Remind him of how he played in the first half against Vanderbilt, and that way he'll never play like that again. That's all we need to do. And listen, man, he was great. And he was great shooting the ball. He was comfortable shooting the ball, coming off the inbounds, getting the pass off a screen, no hesitation, beautiful follow through. I mean, Zakai Ziegler had his best shooting performance of the year, man. He was phenomenal.
The trash can we're referring to, Tennessee had a turnover trash can in 2017, which ended up being somewhat symbolic of how that season played out. But that's what we're referring to. My thought when I saw that during the Georgia Tech game was similar to, I told you last week, one of my favorite Jason Swain quotes is, paraphrase at this point, you got an ice cream cone when you were being interviewed during a media day and a gentleman had an ice cream cone while asking you a question. That was my thought with is that a trash can?
The trash
They
can?
opened up a trash can for the turnover celebration.
Well, what's crazy is, I mean, like, it was a raggedy, cheap looking trash can. I mean, have a good looking one. Like,
Right,
have
yeah.
a good looking one.
No, they didn't go stainless steel on that one.
No, that thing was straight from Dollar Tree. Like, don't do that. And then, like, you don't have to hold it up the whole entire time. Like, put it away somewhere. Put it by the bench. I mean, people can see it. You don't have to hold it up and embarrass the whole fan base.
Being hoisted
Like it was a trophy.
it's a great champion. Like
Yeah, it was being hoisted like it was a Simba from Lion King. It was weird, man. It was weird.
Shannon in the text box. Josh and Swain are giving 5-star heart today on the show. Shannon, thank you.
Man, we're never gonna live that one down.
No, that one's going to be around for quite some time. That one's not going away.
Golly.
Embrace it. 865-656-9900 is how you can join us. We appreciate the interaction. Call or text. We'll talk more Tennessee basketball. A lot of football talk to get to this afternoon. Tennessee baseball with a nice start this past weekend. We'll cover it all. We're with you until 3 o'clock this afternoon on Josh and Swain. Welcome back into Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us on this Monday afternoon. Hope everybody had a great weekend. Successful weekend for Tennessee sports. 865-656-9900 if you would like to join us. Swain, maybe a new enemy for Tennessee fans to take on. Plenty of Tennessee fans might not like this individual if they're paying to the league in the first place, but the NBA All-Star Weekend took place, and they changed up the format, like, dislike, whatever, on Sunday. Not too worried about that. But one person who did not like the Rising Stars factoring into the four-team tournament was Draymond Green. And Draymond Green voiced that and called out VFL Dalton Connect in the process. Did you see this?
I did.
Draymond said that Dalton Connect doesn't even have a team right now. Can't even get traded. Of course, Connect is back with the Lakers. He played in their most recent game, and he was playing with the Rising Stars this weekend. Dalton was asked about it afterward, had not heard the comments. It was relayed to Dalton, and Dalton said, that's just Draymond. He's just talking. He was asked kind of a follow-up, said, he's just talking, because Draymond is a trash talker on the floor, sometimes can lose his cool a little bit, but calling out Dalton Connect, of all people, was Draymond Green.
Yeah, great response by Dalton Connect, for sure.
I thought so, too.
Yeah, I mean, that was a veteran response by him. And Dalton does have a team. I mean, it's the Lakers. And when you look at the two players that were involved in the trade, the player that should feel the worst is Williams. I mean, like the Hornets, they don't really want him back. They're trying still to complete the trade, whereas like Dalton was a great pickup for the Lakers when they picked him up. They were happy that he fell. They felt lucky that he fell. LeBron James, JJ Redick, Rob Pelinka, the GM, like they all said that. I don't think this is an indictment on Dalton Connect's game, but when they made the trade for Luka, you had to put the right pieces around Luka, and having a Dalton Connect and Austin Reeves just didn't make sense. They needed a lob threat, and so they had to use someone with value, someone that was good to be able to get what they wanted. So to me, it's a compliment that Dalton Connect was used in a trade where he was the only piece. It wasn't like the Lakers were offering Dalton Connect and a couple first and another player. No, that means Dalton is good and has huge upside, that he was the only player involved in the trade that was going to allow them to get what the Lakers felt like was the last missing piece. So Draymond, I like Draymond. I like his honesty. I love, how candid he can be. But sometimes, he does things that I don't necessarily agree with, and he says things that I don't agree with. And so, yeah, like, was the format ideal? No, the format's not ideal. But Draymond, the format is what it is because your contemporaries, the people in the NBA over the last couple of years, they don't play hard. And so the NBA has been forced to come up with these different tricks and things to generate interest, because at the end of the day, y'all dudes don't play hard enough in the All-Star game. That's what it comes down to, man. They don't play hard enough. And that's why we had, and I told you I wasn't going to watch the All-Star game, but my family weaseled me into it a little bit last night, and plus I wanted to watch Dalton Connect. And so if Dalton wasn't playing, I definitely wouldn't have been watching. But the fact that Dalton was playing, I started to watch. But, like, we're here because the dudes don't play hard enough. As simple as that. And that's funny because, a lot of these dudes be talking about how they want to honor Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan's their favorite player. I mean, well, how about you play like him in the All-Star game? How about you honor those guys by truly having the mama mentality when you step out in between the white lines? If it's an All-Star game or a regular game, Kobe wouldn't approve of this. He wouldn't approve of it at all.
No, you're probably right. Definitely right about Draymond, and his era has caused the shift to whatever it was, and now they're trying to figure out the best format. I think some of what they're doing last night, they're trying to appeal to young fans, like the Mr. Beast involvement.
That was terrible.
Yeah,
that was a waste of time.
That's not for you or me. That's for somebody that's 20. at least 20 years, 25, 30 years younger than us, I think, at this point. That we don't need to get into the
It's
math.
terrible.
But they're trying different things. Like, the NFL has tried different things. They decided, well, we can't do a real game anymore. So everybody's
Oop.
had to adjust to what it is now. But Draymond Green coming after Dalton Connect, he better be aware of all Twitter. We'll come back. We have 2 hours to go on Josh and Swain. Welcome into hour number 2 of Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. We have 2 hours to go on 99.1 The Sports Animal and AM 640 The Sports Monster. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward. You can join us, call or text at 865-656-9900. Swain, you had a chance to visit with Tim Banks, Tennessee's defensive coordinator, here over the weekend.
Yeah, man, he was on The Nation with us last night, Chris Lowe and I, and he was nominated for the Bros Award and was a finalist for that award. And shout out to Al Golden, Notre Dame's defense coordinator last season, for winning the award. Now he's in the NFL as a defensive coordinator, and so honestly, I thought Tim Banks' job as a defense coordinator was more impressive than Al Golden's, because you look at Al Golden as a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame, his head coach is a defensive guy. You look at offensively what they were able to do, like they ran the football really well there at Notre Dame. That helped the defense. What Tim Banks did with an offensive head coach, with a first-year starting quarterback, with an offense that wasn't that great consistently, and Tennessee's defense was able to put Tennessee on their back and carry Tennessee to a college football playoff berth. I thought Tim Banks' job was more impressive than Al Golden. But I get it, because Al Golden coached in the national championship game. But, I asked Tim Banks about the importance of having NFL players, developing guys and having them being drafted, because Tennessee is in position to have 3 guys, maybe 4, drafted there in the first couple of rounds. And defensively, they'll have Pierce, Omar Norman Lott, and he mentioned how important that was for their program. I also asked him about characteristics of a player that would thrive in Tim Banks' defense. And obviously, talent is the most important thing, right? But he talked about that player having trust. That was the most important thing outside the talent. Having trust in what they're doing defensively, trust in what they're being taught to do, and those players that do that have a chance to be really successful in their defense. So he's gotten paid. He's gotten his contract renewed. He's gotten more money, and I continue to maintain the question here that, all right, how is it going to look next year in year 5, where offensively, we understand the success that this team has had over the last 4 years has been when they're running tempo. And we saw Josh Heupel grow as a head coach this year at Oklahoma, not deciding to go as fast, not being as aggressive as he has in the past, because he knew that his defense was winning the game for him. And now as we go to year 5, what's going to be the approach to win football games? Because you have to play complementary football, offense, defense, special teams. And we saw this team play complementary football that meant more conservative play calling, a more conservative approach offensively. But are we going to do that again next year? So Tim Banks, he's a future head coach, man. Something I said during the broadcast. You can just hear it and how he carries himself on a daily basis. I know his family's happy about continuing to be here in Knoxville. I think they love it here. But he's going to be a head coach someday. And I think if you're Josh Heupel, man, this is what you want. Like, you want to have a head coach on defense, and I think they have that with Tim Banks.
Yeah, I thought there was a good chance he could get a head coaching job this offseason. It did not work out that way. He's still at Tennessee, and that's, I think, really good news for Tennessee. But I'm with you. I would say good chance in the next couple of years he is getting that kind of opportunity and takes it as a head coach.
Yeah. I mean, he bet on himself. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned it too during the interview. Not to put him in a tough spot or uncomfortable spot, but it's just the facts. It's hard to be a defense coordinator in this type of system, offensively. Like, you may not have the time to rest on the sideline and to make adjustments. It is difficult, and no one was beating down his door to be their defensive coordinator when he was an assistant coach at Penn State. So he didn't have a ton of options, and I'm sure there were some naysayers that told him, "Hey man, I don't know if you want to take that job at Tennessee, but he took it, and the personnel wasn't that great, but he found ways, whether it was to be creative or send blitzes. I mean, they still generated some negative plays and some TFLs, and he's taken the criticism, even though I think a lot of it has been unfair. But each year they have improved. That's one thing you can say about the defense.
Yep.
Each year, in 4 years, they have improved. Offensively, it has been up and down, up and down. There has been a consistent rise defensively under Tim Banks in 4 years. That's one thing we can say.
Without question. And I would also say, without question, that's been the roster has improved. The overall defensive talent has improved as the defense has. But I would say they're nowhere near where they really need to be if the goal is to go compete for a national championship in terms of overall talent. Now, maybe there's some young talent that's going to change that as well over the next year or two. But again, we saw the national champion. Tennessee played against them this season in Ohio State. They have 3 defensive linemen that were in Dane Brugler's top 50 last week.
Good.
So that's the level you're trying to reach. That's and everybody's trying to, not just Tennessee. Everybody's trying to, but that's kind of a reminder of what Tim Banks still needs to get the defense where fans probably expect it. I would say that he's exceeded what the expectations have been to this point.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. There's another level that you want to get to if you're Tim Banks. I mean, top 10 is pretty dang good, and that's going to be hard to duplicate with all the players you have, going to the league on that defensive line. But listen, man, that's the challenge of it. I mean, you got to continue to develop and recruit, and scheme and put guys in the right position to be successful. Tim Banks wasn't perfect last year. There were games, not many, where schematically you kind of scratch your head because offensive opponents were able to get big chunks, and us not have an answer. And listen, you can look at the play of the defensive line and point the finger there if you want to. That'll be fine with me. But you need more complementary football. Like, you don't have to be as good on defense this season to have more results. You just need better play offensively. And so if you take a small step back, let's say Tennessee's defense is between 11 and 15, or they're sitting at 17th in the country, but your offense taking a big jump, who knows, man? You may have a better chance of getting more wins in the college football playoff this year than last year.
So Tim Banks back as the Vols defensive coordinator, a finalist this year for the Broyles Award, which, as Swain mentioned a few minutes ago, last week went to Al Golden at Notre Dame. 865-656-9900 if you would like to join us with that conversation with Tim Banks, with Chris Lowe and Jason Swain on The Nation on Sunday evening. We'll come back. Changes coming to college football. It was a matter of when this would happen. It looks like we are getting a lot closer. We will tell you about that change when we come back. 865-656-9900 if you would like to join us on Josh and Swain. Welcome back into Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. We'll get to expected change sooner rather than later in college football in a moment. I would also say, Swain, we expected change in the Associated Press top 25, and we have seen it. Tennessee has dropped one more spot to number 6 after going 1-1 last week. Houston winning at Arizona is number 5 in the country now. Alabama drops to number 4 after losing at home to Auburn. So the top 6, I'll go beyond that, but the top 6, Auburn is number 1, Florida number 2, Duke number 3, then number 4 Alabama, number 5 Houston, number 6 Tennessee, number 7 is Texas A&M, the Vols opponent coming up on Saturday on the road. A&M will play at Mississippi State tomorrow, so a tough road game for the Aggies before hosting Tennessee on Saturday. But as it relates to the Associated Press poll, that'll be number 6 versus number 7 when Tennessee travels this weekend. Again, Auburn, number 1 in the country, claiming both spots now, deservedly so, with that win at Alabama. Florida, the number 2 team in the country after Alabama dropped a couple of spots. And Tennessee only dropping 1 spot, not bad at all after going 1-1 last week.
Yeah, man, Florida. Think about the distractions that they've had with their program, and to kind of withstand all that and find themselves second-rated team in the second and third week of the month. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, those players be able to lock in, go to Auburn and win and play like they've played. I know they took one on the chin against Tennessee when Tennessee only had 7 scholarship players, but I mean, again, to be in this position, and if this was Tennessee, we would be saying the same things, but this wouldn't happen in Tennessee. We wouldn't be having the distraction and stuff that they've had with their coaching staff, because our guys know what situations to put themselves in and what situations not to put themselves in. But Florida's been really, really good this season. But yeah, I mean, 1 spot you're dropping. Really, it's about playing the right way, the right time of the season. It was a bad game against Kentucky, letting those guys beat us up there with how they've been playing this season, how poorly they've played defensively. But it's an opportunity, man, because you play against Texas A&M, which if you look in the mirror, you're kind of looking at yourself, because Texas A&M, that they're built on toughness, they're built on defense, they have a positive culture. Offensively, they can be stagnant at times and not be able to score points. So it's going to be a tough game, man, but a top 7 matchup between A&M and Tennessee, that's going to be fun here in a couple days.
Yep. So Tennessee, number 6 in the Associated Press poll, number 6 in the coaches poll, number 5 in the NCAA net ranking. So that's an important note as well. The updated NCAA net ranking, Auburn is number 1, then Duke, Houston, Florida, and Tennessee number 5, 1 spot ahead of Alabama. The NCAA net ranking has Texas A&M number 11. So everybody recognizes big game on Saturday, a full week to prepare for the game for Tennessee with 5 regular season games to go. But despite some of the concern, despite some of the frustration that is warranted, it's not like the play has been perfect, obviously. Tennessee's 21-5 and number 5 in the NCAA net ranking and number 6 in the top 2 polls, the AP and the coaches polls. Not a bad position to be in 3 weeks out until the postseason.
I mean, what the rankings tell you, or the polls tell you, is that there's still respect for Tennessee. Like, they respect how Tennessee has played, who they've played, and the wins that they have gotten. I mean, you go look at Auburn and their quad 1 wins. Nobody in the country has more than that. But Tennessee is right there. Like, Tennessee, I think, the second most quad 1 wins in the country, or right there kind of in the conversation with the most in the country.
Second most, tied with Alabama.
Yeah,
so Auburn has 14, which is outrageous. Then outrageous. Tennessee and Alabama have 8. That's the second most in the country.
Yeah, so that's what the rankings tell me, is that there's a respect level for Tennessee basketball and the schedule that they've played this season, how they've played. But it doesn't really matter, because if you don't play well in the tournament, you're going home. Right. So it doesn't matter who's ranked first or second or third or fourth or whatever. I know for the seeding, it would be lovely to have a number 1 seed over a number 2 seed, but we had this conversation last year. Do you want to be the 4th number 1 seed and go out to California and play in the same bracket as the best team in the country, or would you rather have the top number 2 seed play closer to home and maybe have a favorable draw? We didn't know that last year. Actually, going to California wouldn't have been bad for Tennessee. So that stuff don't matter at this point. It's the Con Ziegler making sure that offensively, man, this team doesn't go through 4-minute droughts. That we're able to make shots and make the right decisions offensively. That we're making the right decisions in our defensive, assignments and following the scout the proper way. Like that's what it matters, man. Key guys stepping up in key moments. Chazanier did it versus Vanderbilt, and that was great. But he got to do it against Texas A&M. That's why he came to Tennessee. That's why he's brought in. So you got to have your best players have the best performances in big games, and there's another one coming up on the road.
Yeah, Chaz needs to keep it going, which everybody recognizes. Rick Barnes, Zakai, Chaz included. We talked to Ben McKee, was it Thursday on the show, and he mentioned that a few days prior he had written that, hey, Chaz looks like maybe he's turning the corner, being more consistent, had a bad game against Kentucky, but he bounced right back and had what Rick Barnes described as maybe his best game, 21-8, and playing the way that they've asked him to do. If that keeps going, that increases Tennessee's chances of continuing to go in the postseason. The note from John Rothstein would back up the importance of Chaz Lanier. John Rothstein covering college basketball. You see him on CBS Sports, and he noted after the win for Tennessee on Saturday that Tennessee is 16-1 this season when Chaz Lanier scores 16 or more points, and 4-5 when he does not. 16 is slightly below his season average, by the way. He had 21-8 on Saturday. Tennessee won against Vanderbilt. So if Chaz can score 16 or more, Tennessee has been almost unbeatable this season. So everybody has to play their role, but Chaz's role is to score a bunch of points for Tennessee.
Yeah, that's his job. Everyone has a different job description. I mean, Felix at par, his job description, although it has changed slightly since the beginning of the season, they're asking him to be more involved offensively, and when they throw the ball to him in the post, go get a bucket and be better at doing that, and he has. They didn't ask him to do those things at the beginning of the season, but his job is to set great screens and play great defense without fouling and finish on lobs. Like, that's his job. Everyone has a different job description, and Chazanier just needs to do what his job description is, and that is put the ball in the basket. He has the green light to do that. He needs to do it.
Swain, in the YouTube chat, Richard says, over the weekend, I grilled a chicken for 2 hours.
Ugh.
It wouldn't tell me why it crossed the road.
Huh? What?
Over the weekend, Richard grilled a chicken for 2 hours. It still wouldn't tell Richard why it crossed the road.
I might get that later. That might be one of those jokes that you kind of marinates and you kind of get it later.
The right kind of marinade for the chicken can make a big difference too.
So I've heard, yeah.
Speaking of doing jobs, part of my job is to move us forward. We will do that. We'll get to the changes coming to college football when we come back. 865-656-9900 if you would like to join in. VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here. I'm Josh Ward. 90 minutes to go on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us on this President's Day holiday on this Monday afternoon. We have 90 minutes remaining on the show on 99.1 The Sports Animal and AM 640 The Sports Monster. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward. And Swain, we've seen the shift in college football. The latest round of realignment led to a Power Four from the Power Five, the SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12. But I do wonder, is it really more of the truly powerful two, and then you have two others with some power? And the reason I ask that is I read Ross Dellinger's story from Yahoo Sports over the weekend. He had a report yesterday that began with the note that last spring, in what he described as intense and at times heated negotiations over the future of the college football playoff, leaders of the Big Ten and the SEC threatened to create their own postseason system if they were not granted a majority of college football playoff revenue and full authority over the playoff format. In the end, as Ross wrote, executives of the 10 FBS leagues and Notre Dame signed a memorandum of understanding that handed control over to the Big Ten and the SEC, which are the two richest conferences in college football. And with that, Ross wrote that momentum is building to further expand the playoff to 14 or 16 teams, assign multiple automatic qualifiers per league, as many as 4 each for the Big Ten and the SEC, and also finalize a scheduling arrangement together that may fetch millions in additional revenue from TV partners. This could also clear the way for the SEC to move to 9 regular season games, as we've been talking about. Feels like forever at this point. But it looks like toward 2026, the SEC and the Big Ten will make the push to a 14 or 16 team playoff instead of the current 12-team format that we have right now. And there is momentum toward 4 automatic qualifying spots for the SEC and the Big Ten. And if that were to happen, it looks like it would probably be 2 automatic qualifying spots for the Big 12 and the ACC. There's an automatic position for Notre Dame that we'll describe for you as well. But what do you think when you hear this about the power that is being flexed by the SEC and the Big Ten for more change in the college football playoff?
I don't think it's needed to extend the playoffs from 12 to 14 or 16. But that means we get more money. We get more college football. And we're sitting here as football fans. We are without college football right now. The Super Bowl just finished. We are without NFL football. And I have no problem with watching more football. But this is where I side with guys like Josh Pate and Barrett Sallee, who are against expansion, because there's really no need to add more teams who are not worthy of being in that playoff conversation. If you are the SEC, there was no reason for you to go from 8 conference games to 9 unless you were going to get paid a whole lot more money, or it was going to benefit you in terms of having more teams play or get automatic seeds to play in the football playoff. Like this past season, Alabama and Ole Miss, a lot of people felt like they should have been in there along with South Carolina, but they were not. And Big Ten had more teams. If you are the SEC, you are willing to come off of your stance of 8 in-conference games to go to 9 if it means 4 automatic qualifiers. I understand that side of it. If that was the play. The seeding was all jacked up this year, Josh, with teams that had buys that shouldn't have had buys. When you look at their schedule, their strength of schedule, the strength of their conference. So it looks like it's going to be better, but at the same time, I'm conflicted on not wanting more teams in the playoffs, but wanting more teams in the playoffs because that means more college football for fans.
Yeah, it also means here in Knoxville, we talk about Tennessee. Tennessee has a better shot to get in each year, right? It's not greatly enhanced, but if there are 14 or 16 spots, if you increase a 12-team field by 33%, you had 4 more spots, obviously you have a better chance of getting in.
Yeah.
Let's say it's 14, so you're not expanding by as much. Would the playoff have been better this year if Alabama and Miami were in it?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think you would have had more competition. But like, if you're Tennessee, you're not trying to like being able to get in the playoffs just because the playoff expanded shouldn't be your goal. Like you should be in because you're one of the best teams in the country. Like that should be the mentality of Boise State or SMU or one of those programs. All right, the playoff is expanding. That means we'll have a better opportunity. You should already be in the playoffs at 12 teams because you have the resources to put out a good product. You have the resources to recruit and accumulate talent. We shouldn't be hoping for things to be easier for us to have a better chance. We're Tennessee, man. Like we're not Louisville. We're not Purdue, even though Purdue has beaten us a couple times on the football field. But like those are the programs that should be happy that the playoffs are expanding because it helps their chances of getting in. Not Tennessee, not LSU, not Florida, Alabama. Like we should be getting in anyways.
Well, that's the right attitude to have. I agree. And if you're getting into a 12-team playoff versus a 14 or 16, makes it a little more special, right? If it expands and you get in because, hey, somebody's got to get in to 16-team playoff. Look, you're there. You're going to feel good about it, I guess. If they go to 16, they're going to expand the first round. Instead of having the buys, you're going to have everybody play and play the same amount of games. If it's 14, you'd still keep 2 buys, I believe, at the start. So I'm not in favor of expanding past 12. I think 12 we can make a case is a bit too much, but I think it's I think it's a solid compromise between if you're in favor of 8 or you're debating with a 14 or 16 team field. I think 12 in the middle still keeps some of that special entry in. I look at the 16 and I use this most recent season as an example, but I could keep going. So if it's 16 and we add Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, and South Carolina to the field, yeah, there would have been more playoff games to watch, but I don't know how that makes things that much better when, by the way, the playoff ends up competing for our attention because at that point you're moving toward the end of the NFL regular season and then the NFL postseason, and I don't think putting 3 more 9-3 teams in that we don't think are that good in the first place into the playoff is going to enhance the fan experience. What it's going to potentially enhance is the financial opportunity for the SEC and the Big Ten. But the fan experience, I don't think, is enhanced that much. And in some cases, I think you can see some drawbacks.
Well, we've already seen examples of revenue being a priority over the fan experience. We've gotten shorter football games with more commercials. So they don't care about fan experience. They may say they do. They may have a section at the conference games where you can play games with your kids and do all that stuff and point to how the fan experience is important. There may be some individual schools that care about the fan experience. We've heard what Danny White had to say about renovations and changes to enhance the fan experience. But as a whole, college football doesn't care about the fan experience. It's the money that's more important. If it was about the fan experience, we would have more football, less commercials. We would have better officials. There would be a lot of things that would be better than what it is right now.
Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I do think, well, silly me for even broaching the subject. Just like this weekend, Pete Thamel during College Game Day had the report of a discussion to go to up to 76 teams in the NCAA tournament in basketball.
It's about money, man. It's about money.
Yeah, I don't know one person that is in favor of that. I can come up with people, and they are all conference leaders that would benefit financially. I think coaches would be in favor because that just means more opportunities for their team. But in terms of the viewer, the person that enjoys the sport, that watches the sport, pays for tickets or sits down on the couch and watches the game, I don't know anybody that is in favor of doing that in basketball, and I haven't heard too much in favor of expanding the college football playoff. There's been some that have said, hey, 16, I'd like to see that in football. It's not an outrageous idea. I don't see the real benefit to the sport to do that in football. I see no benefit to the sport to do it in college basketball.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Leave basketball alone. There's nothing wrong with the playoff format in college basketball. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. You can improve maybe with your selection and how teams get in over others. There's always snubs, and so you want to make sure that you're better in that regard, so that way teams are not being snubbed that deserve to be in over teams that don't deserve to be in. Like, you can improve that, but adding teams, that's not helping the product at all. There's nothing wrong with basketball. Go fix football. Fix that postseason mess.
Also, from this story, Ross Dellinger wrote, yahoosports.com is where you can go read it. As I read from his story, the 14 or 16 team model would grant 4 automatic qualifiers each to the SEC and Big Ten, 2 each to the ACC and Big 12, and 1 to the highest ranked Group of 5 champion. It includes 1 or 3 at-large spots, depending 14 or 16 teams in the field. One of those intended for Notre Dame if it finishes ranked inside the top 14, a guarantee specifically designated for the Irish that is part of the college football playoff memorandum. So if Notre Dame is in the top 14, it would be guaranteed one of those at-large spots.
Why in the hell would Notre Dame not be in top 14?
Well, they better be.
I'm sorry, man. If you are Notre Dame and you're not in the top 10, you don't deserve to be in the college football playoff. You got no excuses not to be one of the top 10 teams in the country. Come on, man. No excuse. 14?
Something else that kind of makes me laugh at what I would describe as the absurdity of where we've reached in the conversation. Officials describe the 14-team format as a 4-4-2-2-1+1 model, in which the top 2 seeds receive first-round byes. So a 4-4-2-2-2-1+1 format is what they're looking at. Maybe when you go that far down the format model line, maybe you've gone a little too far, and you might want to pull it back.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Hey, man, if you ever question the motivation behind change, always look at the money. Always follow the money trail.
It's a good place to start. And by the way, there's some responses, because, again, some are going to be in favor of the expansion, and that's perfectly fine if you are. If your response is, well, you may not want to see it, but you're going to watch the games. Well, of course I will.
Yeah, I'm going to watch it. Yeah.
But
I'm not going
that
to
doesn't
boycott
mean I'm calling for them.
Yeah, just because I'm against adding more teams doesn't mean I'm going to be boycotting it and decide not to watch it. I think you can have myself.
I think you can have too much of what you love at some point. I like pizza, love pizza. Sometimes you can have one slice too many. I love ice cream. You can go a bowl too far, and I think you can do that in the sports world for sure.
Yeah, but we live during a time right now where if you don't agree with what's going on, then you should not be a fan, or you should just not be involved, period. All right, if you don't like the changes, well, just, hey, how about you just don't watch? No, I'm still gonna watch because I like it. But here's my opinion. Like, you can have an opinion about, all right, what does the country need to do to be better? All right, it may be different than others, but that don't mean you need to move out. It just means that this is your opinion. All right, this is your opinion about what Tennessee athletics need to do. All right, if it's different from everybody else's and people don't like it, that doesn't mean you need to not be a Tennessee fan. Like, that stance, that logic, what we do to each other, man, that kills me. Like, you can have an opinion and still be a fan of that team. You can have an opinion and still be a fan of college football. You can have an opinion and still be, a citizen. That's my only thing. Like, hey, man, if you don't want 14 teams, cool. But if they do it, I'll still be watching, Josh.
Right.
I'll still be watching.
Yeah, both can be true.
Yeah,
you
can be true.
Have an opinion what should happen, but also be willing to watch the games if they're on.
Still watching.
And we will continue the countdown to the start of the season. We'll get back to basketball, Swain. We have a bracketology update.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it. We got 5 days to go until Tennessee's playing another game. We'll update you on where the bracketology stands with the net rankings and the polls having been updated when we come back right here on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. Final segment of hour number 2. Swain, we have an update from Joe Lenardi at ESPN with his bracketology.
Number one seed. That's what he told us last week.
Well, not so fast, my friend. Tennessee is the top number 2 seed in Joey Brackett's update. Number 1 is not hard to guess. It is Auburn As Joe writes in his latest update, Auburn has at least a 2-loss margin as the number 1 overall seed. That was a huge win at Alabama on Saturday. The number 2 overall team is still Alabama. Number 3 is Duke. Number 4 is Florida. Tennessee is the number 5 team. So the highest ranked number 2 seed is Tennessee. Joe has Texas A&M number 6 ahead of Houston. Houston with a big win this past weekend, but the Aggies are ahead of Houston. Notable with Tennessee playing at Texas A&M on Saturday, and then Iowa State is number 8. Notables include Kentucky at number 11. That's maybe the only notable right now as it relates to Tennessee beyond that. So Tennessee, the top number 2 seed, according to Joe Lunardi, 1 spot behind Florida with 5 games to go here in the regular season. Big games include at Texas A&M, at Ole Miss, and home for Alabama for the Vols.
Still the 5th overall seed. That's good news. I don't take that as bad news. I mean, Tennessee with an opportunity to jump Florida with a win on the road at Texas A&M, who is right now ranked the 7th best team, in the country, and then you have an opportunity to beat Alabama, who's the 2nd overall rated team, according to Joe Lunardi, on the road too. Like, though, if you win those 2 games, and I don't know who Florida plays the remaining of the season, but that's an opportunity to jump Florida for that last number 1 seed.
Yeah, I think Tennessee has an opportunity. Florida's schedule, I would describe as more favorable, but not easy by any means. They still have a trip to Tuscaloosa, and if they lose there, I don't know that hurts Florida that much. But here's what Florida has the rest of the way: Oklahoma at home tomorrow, at LSU on Saturday, Georgia on the road, Texas A&M at home, Alabama on the road, home against Ole Miss in the regular season finale. They have 6 games remaining. Tennessee has 5. So Florida, 1 spot ahead of Tennessee. They obviously split the regular season series, each team blowing out the other at home. Florida 1 spot ahead. Florida has the best win when you take out the head-to-head 1-1, 1-1. Florida went to Auburn. That's a big deal for the Gators to have won that game.
Yeah, but do you feel like, because we saw Tennessee drop and get jumped by a team, even though Tennessee didn't lose, can you see Tennessee, if they're able to beat Alabama on the road and beat A&M on the road, even with Florida winning the rest of the games, do you see a possibility that Tennessee could still jump Florida?
Yeah, I see a possibility. If Tennessee can go, Tennessee has 5 games remaining. If Tennessee can go 4-1, I thought going into the weekend, if Tennessee can finish 5-1, the Volunteers have a shot to jump up into a number 1 seed. Probably need a little help. So you'd love for Florida to stumble in a couple of games. Could happen. They lost at home to Missouri, which is a good team, but losing that game at home tells me they could. And we know what happened in Knoxville. And I don't know, you can become a big Alabama hater, Swain. That's one that you could adopt. If Tennessee can beat them, if Alabama can really lose a few more, maybe they slide. But they're in the number 2 spot. Florida's right there in front of Tennessee. That's the first one you're trying to catch if you're the Volunteers. Focus on A&M this week. Would be a big road game for the resume for Tennessee. We'll come back with 1 hour to go. What about the mindset Tennessee must carry? Rick Barnes on that coming up next on Josh and Swain. Welcome into hour number 3 of Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain is here. I'm Josh Ward. Happy President's Day this holiday. Hopefully, Swain, the kids are spending the day learning about their presidents who have come and set us in this kind of position as they're out of school today. That's, I'm sure, what they're doing, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, that's what I told them to do. Kids always listen to their parents, don't they?
That's my experience. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Our way or the highway. They've come to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, always listen 100% of the time. And so,
Of course, my kids respond, all right, Dad, hit the road then.
well, I'm not able to monitor. I'm sure they're doing exactly what I told them to do. So,
Yep.
we'll
And we
find out at
appreciate
3.
that. We appreciate that. We appreciate you being with us today. Call or text in if you'd like to join us. 865-656-9900. Tennessee with the win against Vanderbilt on Saturday. Tale of two halves. First half was ugly. Second half was a great comeback for Tennessee to get the win against Vanderbilt. And it took Zakai Ziegler having a huge second half. It took Chaz Lanier having a really good game for Tennessee. And then others stepping up in their roles. Felix Akpara, what he was able to do. Jemai Meshack. He hit a couple threes. The late three that he hit was key in Tennessee being able to hold off Vanderbilt because Vanderbilt was still hitting shots late in that game as well. But it was also the mindset. That was part of the message at halftime that Rick Barnes had for his team. And Rick Barnes talked about that after the game. The mindset, the position Tennessee's in. Tennessee, as we mentioned, is projected as the top 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. This is what Rick Barnes said about where Tennessee is and what it's going to take to succeed here in a few weeks.
I talked about a mindset. I said, this time of year, you either wilt or you grow. I said, which one are we going to do? You're going to be in games like this the rest of the year. And we're disappointed that where we are because, you know, our goal is every year to try to contend for an SEC championship. We know that's gone. But the fact is, a regular season championship, that's gone. But it's a mindset. And there's a lot of teams heading into February that would love to be where we are. There's a lot of teams that probably already taken inventory. And then there's those teams that really want to make a run at the national championship. And if we're going to be one of those teams, it goes back to what I've talked about, the mindset of getting better and being able to look at each other and talk, you know, and we as coaches, we keep doing that with these guys, trying to put them in position. I talked to Jamal Meshack last night. We were on the phone together, and I told him, I said, what I want you to do, I want you to find your set place in the corner, and I want you to shoot corner threes when you're open. And he did it today, and he made two of them. And I said, if you'll just do that, and then all these other areas where he likes to drive the ball, but if you'll just make up your mind, you're going to get yourself there. And when we went to the naked side ball screen, he did a lot of good things on the backside where he was screening, trying to get a shooter open there. But he, as much as anyone at halftime talked about, said, this isn't who we are. You know, why are we doing this? And I said, I mean, where's our mindset? But the fact is, the second half, the guys that, and I told him the guys that we expected to do it last game didn't do it tonight. He and Shaq and Z did it. And Felix, and I thought Chaz in some ways was as good as he's been all year because of the things that we talked about yesterday. I really thought he tried to implement them.
Rick Barnes, after the win against Vanderbilt on Saturday, that last part I thought stood out too, Swain. We spent some time after the Kentucky loss, which I'll repeat was a disappointing loss. It's never good to go 0-2 against Kentucky. Everybody should agree with that, inside Tennessee's basketball building or outside. But it also still was one game, and there was the rest of the season. But on Wednesday during the show, we were getting messages, Chaz Lanier is a bust. And not everybody had that opinion, but enough had it to send us messages about it. And I thought that was crazy, frankly. And then Friday, he is on the Naismith list of the top 30 players in the country with 3 weeks to go in the regular season. And then on Saturday, Chaz Lanier scores 21 points, grabs 8 rebounds, and had at least one of his best games of the season, according to Rick Barnes. I think that's important perspective of where Tennessee still is and what's required the rest of the way when the stakes get higher, when it's lose one and you're out in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good game by Chaz. You know, being aggressive to start the game. He was really really good. I think the next step for him is to do it in a game versus an opponent that is kind of right there on the same level as Tennessee. You know, a top 10, top 15 opponent in the tournament. That's why he was brought in, but he's certainly not a bust at all. Everyone goes through slumps, shooting slumps. If you're a shooter, he obviously wasn't in one against Vanderbilt. It was good to see Jamal Meshack make those shots from the corner. He's worked his tail off to earn the right to be able to take those in the game, and it's about him being confident, him being aggressive, him playing fast when he's on the offensive side of the ball or the court. He plays with that type of instinct and energy defensively, but sometimes offensively, you know, he looks like he doesn't have the confidence. But that wasn't the case on Saturday majority of the time, especially in that second 3-point shot there in the second half, where, man, that game was close. And I thought he poured in the dagger that really solidified the game for Tennessee. But Felix was good. I thought one of the most important plays of the game was when Felix had the tie-up on the floor and he decided he wasn't going to let go. He wasn't letting go at all. I don't care if the whistle was blown. I'm not letting go. It reminded me a lot of a fumble in football where there's a big old pile and guys are fighting for the ball at the beneath the pile. That felt like Felix, man. He was not going to let go. That was a sign to, I think, Vanderbilt that I'm not dropping the rope here, man. I know the ball is ours. The referee's already said it, but I'm not letting go. It's a message to you that I'm not going to drop the rope. I'm here. And I thought that was a really cool sequence for Tennessee.
Yeah, you've got to love Mad Felix, right?
I mean, I like anybody on our team that gets mad and plays with a level of toughness. I mean, that's what you got to have, man. You got to have that. I mean, you can be super nice on the court. You can be super nice off the court, but when it's time to compete, man, there's just a switch you have to be able to flip, and I thought we saw that from a lot of players on our team Saturday.
Yeah, and when Felix Akbar came to Tennessee, I think they loved his size to start out with, his athleticism around the basket, but the physicality that he can bring, and that was on display in the second half against Vanderbilt when Tennessee needed it, because there was no question that Carey was bringing that for Vandy. Tennessee fans, I don't think were liking some of his activities out there, but that's part of his job, is to make the other side really hate him. And I thought the way Felix Akbar responded in the second half was huge.
Yeah, man. If Carey was on Tennessee, fans would love him. He's the type of player that you love to have on your team, but you hate to play against. And, we've had our fair share of players that had the role of Carey. He's going to be a good player, man. He's a young player, but, he was good. And I think Tennessee was fortunate that he fouled out.
Yeah, and then your boy Jason Edwards, 24 points. He kept hitting shots there late. He was 6 of 10 from 3.
Well, that's part of why Rick was getting on Zakai. I mean, a lot of pump fakes that he would fall for. We saw that late in the game. Like, even with Rick getting on Zakai at halftime, those pump fakes that Zakai was going for at the end of the game, I mean, that gave Edwards an opportunity to get some open shots and keep Vanderbilt closer than they needed to be. So I'm pretty sure even with Zakai's really good second half offensively, that's something that Rick Barnes is going to point out in film study that, hey, man, stay down. Like, stay down and make him take a tough shot over you instead of flying past him or falling for a jump fake and allow him to get an open look.
Yeah, credit to Vandy. They've got some hoopers. Jason Edwards, Michaela Blakes went for 55 on the women's side this weekend. 55.
Against who?
Against Auburn, which is not the best team as we described last week. They're having a tough time, but 55 is 55. That tops her 53-point performance earlier in the season.
Yeah, man. She was 23
for
Division
20. I women's freshman record with the 55 points.
Yeah, she was 23 for 24 from the free throw line. I mean, they were down like 6 or 7 with a few minutes to go. I was watching a little bit of it, and I just figured Auburn would win. But nope. I mean, you foul a 3-point shooter. I mean, just a losing basketball teams make losing plays, and that was a good example of that. I mean, you foul a 3-point shooter. They're down three. Why would you? Anyways, they foul a 3-point shooter, and then she goes to the free throw line, makes all three, takes it to overtime, and then Vanderbilt walks away with the game. But it was good to see the Lady Vols. I mean, the Lady Vols played a tough game against a mentally tough defensive-minded team in Ole Miss. Tennessee didn't play their best. Could have shot the ball better. Could have played defense better in certain situations. But the Lady Vols getting a win at home, that was a fun game to see in person.
Yeah, that's a quality win against Ole Miss, one of the better teams in the conference. So that was important for Tennessee coming off a blowout win over Auburn. Lady Vols here with the final stretch as well for the regular season. So good weekend for Tennessee basketball. The men's team rallying to knock off Vanderbilt on Saturday. Lady Vols taking care of business at home against Ole Miss yesterday. And here we are, a couple weeks to go. Tennessee, update, by the way, from Joe Lunardi on the men's side. Tennessee, the top number 2 seed, be number 5 in the overall rankings, according to Lunardi. One of 7 teams with a realistic shot at a number 1 seed. So Tennessee's in a position with 5 games to go. Up next, Texas A&M, which is number 6 in his rankings, the second number 2 seed. Texas A&M will play at Mississippi State tomorrow and then host Tennessee on Saturday. We'll come back, 865-656-9900 if you would like to join us. What do you think? Seeing what happened with Tennessee sports over the weekend, the baseball team sweeping ease. So a nice start for Tony Vitello's team as well. We'll continue the conversation right here on Josh and Swain. Josh and Swain, thank you for being with us. Thanks for hanging out with us. However you are tuning in, we're on 99.1 The Sports Animal, AM 640 The Sports Monster in the Tri-Cities area. We're on YouTube. You can stop by and watch on the 99.1 The Sports Animal YouTube channel. We're with you until 3 o'clock this afternoon. We invite you to call or text 865-656-9900 alongside VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain. I'm Josh Ward, and we say hello to Jay. Jay, thanks for calling in. Good afternoon. What's on your mind today?
Well, I was wanting to ask you something about the football playoff setup you mentioned a minute ago. And, college football changes and conference changes. There's no guarantee what the SEC is going to be 3 or 4 years down the road. And like I was wondering if, for instance, if the SEC is going to be guaranteed 4, well, what if they didn't have 4 people ranked in the top 14 if we were going 14? Or what if the ACC had 3 teams ranked in the top 12 and they decided they was going to take Notre Dame, who was 14th, over one of the teams in the ACC that was ranked in the top 10? Are there allowances for things like that, or is it set?
Automatic's automatic. So you get at least 4 teams in if they follow through with this. So, no, I mean, that's cut and dry. Automatic, you're in. Just like this past year, there were teams that jumped others to get in and to, at least for the purpose of the ranking. Excuse me, seeding versus the ranking. We're back to November and December swing where I'm explaining. But in terms of the seeding, there were teams that jumped because they were guaranteed the top 4 spots as the 4 highest ranked conference champs. So if the SEC has 4 automatic bids, then they are guaranteed 4 teams to get in, no matter where they're ranked.
Yeah, I understand the call.
Teams are ranked ahead of Notre Dame. Notre Dame gets in, right?
If they're a top 14 team, it would appear they would be in. Yes. And a little context, since Ross Dellinger included this in his story, since the 2014 playoff, the SEC has had 52 teams ranked inside the top 14 of the college football playoffs rankings heading into conference championship weekend, which comes out to be about 4.7 teams per year. So it would be rare that they would not have 4 teams inside the top 14, but sure, it could happen. So automatic is automatic for both the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big Ten has had 4.6 teams per year in the top 14 over the last 10 years.
And what was that stat on the SEC? How many they had ranked in the top 14?
4.7 teams per year. So they were it was 52 to 51, SEC versus the Big Ten. So almost identical. Yeah.
Well, I still think it could have some exceptions there. There could be some exceptional years, and I hate to see somebody get to be ranked in the top 10 or 11 and not get to go if they were in a major conference.
Yeah. Now the reality as well is that the SEC and the Big Ten are going to continue to make more money, and they've also added more power to their conference in terms of Oregon and Washington, USC, UCLA come into the Big Ten. The SEC adds Oklahoma and Texas. The conferences are getting stronger in terms of the quality of programs compared to what the ACC and the Big 12 have. That's just the reality, and they're going to keep getting better because they're going to have more money and more resources.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for setting my call.
Yeah, Jay, thanks a lot for the call. So anything we missed there?
But I think that was a really good question. I mean, there are going to be years where what if the SEC is not as good? I mean, we're just going to force that 4th team in the playoff just because there's an agreement to have 4 teams from each of the 2 power conferences. I mean, I agree with Jay there. There's a question. It may not come up, and it may, out of 10 years, it may only come up one time. But, I mean, the last thing you want to see is a team that deserves to be in it because of the play on the football field, and they look good. Like, you take a Florida State team that looks really, really good like they did a couple of years ago, but because the SEC has 14 that must get in, that 14 may not be as good as that ACC team, that 3rd SEC team. But hey, man, that's. I understand if you are the Big Ten and you are the SEC, And you want those guarantees. You are the most two powerful leagues. You are producing a ton of income, revenue. I get it, but it's hard not to think about those exceptions that may occur in the future.
Yep. This season, just to add a little context or perspective to it, this past season, the first 12-team playoff, we did see one team in the top 12 get jumped, which really bothered you, Swain. I know it was Alabama getting jumped by Arizona State. Alabama was ranked 11th. Arizona State and Clemson, as conference champs, jumped up. So Clemson ended up being the 12th seed, but as the 16th ranked team winning the ACC, it jumped into the college football playoff field. So Alabama was left out. If it were a 14-team playoff this past season, Alabama and Miami would have been in. So that would have been a fourth team for the SEC and a third team for the ACC. If it were a 16-team field, it would have been Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina jumping in. So that would have been a third team for the ACC and a fourth, fifth, and sixth team for the SEC. Number 17 was BYU, so that was the next closest Big 12 team.
I don't have an expectation for it to be perfect. I think what you want is you want it to be better than it was this year, and you want it to be more fair. You want it to make sense more than it did this year. And so it's not going to be perfect, but I think with that direction that we're heading into, that seems to make more sense than where we are right now currently.
Jay, thanks again for the call. Good question. This comes from Ross Dellinger's report over the weekend of Yahoo that it appears we are moving forward, getting closer to a 14 or 16 team college football playoff field for 2026. And we might have a decision coming in the next couple of weeks as the SEC is set to meet in New Orleans coming up. The SEC and Big Ten, athletic directors will meet in New Orleans on Wednesday. It'll be their second meeting in the last 5 months. So that could be a big step toward whatever the future will officially look like. We'll come back here in the next segment with an attaboy to hand out. We have 2 segments to go on today's show. Looking back at the weekend, we'll have our winners and losers from the weekend before the show closes out at 3 o'clock. Stay with us right here on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us this Monday afternoon. Jason Swain is here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward. Swain in the text box. I don't know how you would disagree with this. Chip said he just wants the college football playoff, to be 1% better each year.
That's all we can ask for. Chip is right. Just 1% better, man. That's
Right.
all we want.
Right.
And for Tennessee to be in it. That's not true. That's not all I want. I want Tennessee to be in it and the playoffs to be 1% better.
Okay. And of course, sometimes you're going to have games that are dramatic, that are great, that come down to the end. Sometimes you're going to have blowouts. We were reminded of that this year in the college football playoff, the NFL playoffs, including the Super Bowl. If that happens, you snap and clear, and you hope for a better run next year.
No. I like Chip's statement better.
Okay.
Way better.
Okay. We're not doing that today?
We did a little bit of it already earlier today, talking about that damn trash can.
All right. You probably like that trash can so you can throw some of my takes here.
Yep.
The way they paraded that thing around.
So embarrassing, man. God, that was so embarrassing.
But that's in the past.
Oh, it is. It is for sure. So, I'm just glad where we are, man. Women's basketball got a big win over the weekend. Men's got a big win at home. Baseball team was.
Was that wrong, what Tennessee did to Hofstra over the weekend? Was that wrong?
No. Why would it be wrong?
Well, that's not how you treat a guest.
Was it dugout clean?
I do think they were provided what was promised in the agreement.
Yeah. I mean, hey, your playing conditions were fair, like Tennessee. I mean, dugout was clean. I'm sure you got help from the Tennessee staff when it came to whatever you needed, ice or hot chocolate or whatever you needed on a cold day. Yeah, I'm sure we were very accommodating, but that doesn't guarantee we're going to not play our best. We got several guys that are fighting for starting jobs. They're trying to play, and when they go out there, they're going to play well. Don't
15-0 on Friday, 18-1 on Saturday, 13-1 yesterday. All three ended up being 7-inning games, 46-2.
Yeah, the rules put in place to protect their feelings, not us. We're not responsible for that. You can't put a guy in there at the plate and expect him not to hit it. His job is hit the ball. Don't throw them softballs. Don't throw those derby balls, and they won't get blasted. That's my advice for you.
It's Speedy Claxton's school. I was a big fan of him growing up. Darlingstone went there.
I wish I cared. I don't. Hey, Stone Lawless, Huntsville, Alabama native, went in there and he got some cracks of the bat too. That's what you're supposed to do. If you don't do it, then people will be like, "Oh man, you play down in competition." Yeah, No, we did what we were supposed to do.
Okay.
And they expected it. They knew what was about to happen. Because if you don't do that, Josh, then Hofstra goes back and say, "Oh, well, they're not as good as we thought they were. We thought we would get beat by a whole lot more. They're overrated." We can't have that, Josh. We can't have Hofstra going back, saying that.
Cannot have that.
Exactly.
Nope. Bruce in the text box says, "Baseballs, pour it on."
That's right. The rules are there to protect the losing team. That's not our responsibility.
Chip says, "Josh, you keep bringing that trash can up. Swain might dunk you in the trash can."
Yeah, I don't think you would fit in there, Josh. You're so tall and
stout.
everything. Yeah, I don't think you would fit in there. But yeah, I mean, hey, baseball team had their new unis out there. Look crispy whites. And shout out to the fans, man. It was cold.
Yep,
It was
fans were
cold.
there.
And the weather kind of made people have to choose between going to the baseball game or going to the basketball game. And it's a great thing about Tennessee athletics right now is that you can pick which winner you want to go and see, which winning program you want to go and support. And it was one of those days where both teams won. Only a few 100 yards away from each other. So that's one of the advantages of being a Tennessee fan. Look at it that way instead of saying, oh, I would rather go watch Tennessee baseball than watch the basketball team. Like, really? Just enjoy that both programs are healthy and winning. And it was cold outside. Some people don't want to sit up in 20, 30-degree weather.
Yeah, it is a good time if those are some of the complaints, by the way. Cold weather to watch a top 5 team coming off a national championship, and then a top 5 basketball team as the projected top 2 seed right now with 3 weekends to go in the basketball regular season. Before we close out this segment, how about a feel good for the segment? Let's hand out today's attaboy.
I just wanted to come by and congratulate you on the great work you've been doing.
I like your style. You remind me of a young me.
Failure is not an option.
That boy is good.
Don't remind yourself, nobody built like you. You design yourself.
Attaboy.
Swain, how about this story? This is one that you might have seen over the weekend, got a lot of national attention, deservedly so. Quite a moment, a reminder of the emotion that can come in the sports world as well. We hand out attaboys and attagirls every day thanks to Native Design. NativeTN.com is the website. Great local company, your local custom pool and hardscape specialist. The attaboy today goes to Cade Ballou, who was playing on Friday for Auburn's baseball team, a top 25 team. They were taking on Holy Cross, and in his third at bat, he went yard. He hit a home run. The significance of the story, Swain, is that his mother, Stacy, had passed away just hours earlier from her battle with cancer. He hit the home run, pointed out to the spot where he hit the home run while jogging around the bases, eventually turning the point into a pumped fist, had emotion that he shared with his teammates, and an incredible celebration for an incredible moment. Only being able to imagine what he's going through, what he's really feeling there. To hit that home run just a few hours after dealing with the loss of his mother, quite a moment there on Friday for Auburn baseball.
I can't imagine doing that. I mean, losing someone so close to you, man, you can feel lifeless, you can feel powerless, you can feel numb. For him to go out there and play, but hit a home run, where hitting a baseball is one of the hardest things to do in sports. It requires an enormous amount of concentration. And to be able to do that, man, that's unbelievable. So he deserves the attaboy, and sports are so awesome because you have these teammates who are right there by you when you're going through adversity, things that are out of your control, and major losses back home. And so I'm sure those Auburn teammates, man, wrap their arms around him, and they'll still need to be there the whole entire season because losing your mom or dad or someone close to you is not easy at all to have to deal with.
Auburn coach Butch Thompson said after the game that was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen in 32 years of coaching. Told the Montgomery advertiser that Ballou called him at about 7:15 Friday morning to deliver the news about his mother, and told his coach his mom would have wanted him to play, so he was going to play, and then he hit a home run just a few hours later. An attaboy to Cade Ballou. What an incredible story on Friday afternoon. We hand out attaboys and attagirls every day thanks to Native Design. For 20 years, Native Design has transformed outdoor spaces into breathtaking retreats where families gather, friends connect, and memories are made. Native Design turns ordinary yards into exceptional escapes. You can call 865-310-3256 or visit nativetn.com for Native Design, your local custom pool and hardscape specialists. We'll come back for our final segment, wrap up the conversation from today with winners and losers from a busy sports weekend. We'll do that next here on Josh and Swain. We're back for the final segment of Josh and Swain. Thank you for hanging out with us today. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Swain, good time this afternoon. I'm sure we missed a few items, but a lot of the focus on Tennessee basketball with the win against Vanderbilt. Lady Vols win again in SEC play, beating Ole Miss. Tennessee baseball racked up a ton of runs against Hofstra. And then there was a little NBA All-Star weekend action.
Yeah, it was good to see Dalton connect. Looked like he belonged among the best young players in the league. I mean, he was mentioned so much as being the best shooter there on the squad, and so I look forward to seeing him continue to develop and kind of move past what happened with the trade. I don't see him being with the Lakers a long time, but it was good to see him there in that setting in that weekend. And Appval sent a message over on Twitter over the weekend showing how the Lakers were promoting Dalton Connect because his team played against the OGs. They had a different NBA format, so the Lakers were promoting Dalton Connect playing in that game after a couple of days ago trying to get rid of him in a trade. So the Lakers account did the right thing of promoting the guy on their team. That's
because if they didn't mention him, then everybody would be like, hey, you're not going to show love to a guy on your team that's playing in the All-Star weekend?
Yeah.
So what are they going to do?
Yeah.
He's on the team, and he got traded because they needed help. They needed a center, and Dalton is a guy that's very valuable. The Hornets wanted him, understandably so, and it didn't work out, so he's back in L.A. I hope it works out for him to contribute to a team that can go on a run in the West. I have no rooting interest, but you're a big Lakers fan again. So yeah, I hope he's able to help. He's going to be a part of the rotation, so I hope Dalton's able to help them win.
Hey, man, if they're going to win championship, win games, then, you're going to need your bench players to come in and make shots. And, Dalton Connect is going to be important. So hopefully LeBron is rested up since he didn't decide to do anything in the All-Star game.
All right. How do people get bothered by this one? It's an All-Star game. He's 40 years old. If he's the All-Star game, come on now.
Josh.
Jason.
It's when he decided not to play. That's the problem. Like you could have, because I didn't know he was not going to play. He could have let people know earlier and allowed for his
anybody's interest.
Well, so allow somebody else to get your spot. Someone else that probably deserves to be in an All-Star game. But because he decided to wait till the last minute to let anyone know he wasn't playing, that cost someone else a spot. That's my problem with the move for LeBron. I don't have a problem with him not playing.
So people are upset that a guy that didn't actually make the All-Star team didn't get a call to get a last-minute flight to come play in a game that they didn't want to watch in the first place?
Kyrie was in because of Anthony Davis not being able to play. So, go give someone deserving an opportunity to play in the All-Star game for having a good season. Don't wait till the last minute like LeBron did and cost someone an opportunity. And then, when he took the picture, he's in street clothes. You too hurt to dress like everybody else in the picture? Come on, man. I defend LeBron James on a number of occasions, but there are times like this I can't defend what he.
Yeah, I can't tell what people care about. They don't care about the game, but then they're upset a player couldn't be in a game that they don't care about already.
They care about it. Well,
I can't take all the complaints.
If you comment on the game, that means you care about it. Okay, period, point blank.
You and I. Hey, now we're aligned.
Yeah, if you comment on it, you care about it, and so people do care about it. But LeBron's a big reason why All-Star Weekend isn't where it's supposed to be in the first place. He's the big reason.
Yeah, he's been a part of what's changed over the last 15, 20 years, for sure.
Yeah, so I just wish he would have approached it differently, but hey, whatever.
That's true. Okay. Before we close out the show, we hit today's power poll.
Captain, we're losing power in the warp engine.
Nuclear power pants.
What's up? I'm Kenny Powers.
Don't know the power of the dark side.
I have the power!
great power comes great responsibility.
Full power, Mr. Scott.
Swain, the weekend is behind us, although it's kind of a 3-day weekend because a lot of people are off today. We aren't, though. We're back here. So we look back at the weekend, our top winners and losers from the weekend. Would you like to lead us off?
Oh yeah, I got you taken care of right here. Let's start with the losers. Ben Cleveland, Raiders player, offensive lineman arrested for DUI over the weekend. Not good. Number 2 loser is Kansas basketball. And this is a program that won a championship a couple of years ago. They are blue blood, and they go on the road and they lose to a 13-11 Utah basketball team. And they were active in the portal. That thing is not working there at Kansas. Listen, they may turn it on in the tournament, but right now it's been certainly disappointing. And then, I'm sorry, man, LeBron is the biggest loser, man. Yeah, I got it written down right here, man. I had it written down before we did the show.
Okay.
Telling folks that he wasn't playing late, number 1. Number 2, the dunk contest is his fault. It's his fault. The dunk contest is what it is, Josh Ward.
Okay. Okay, hey, fair enough. Lestingy. We have Lestingy as a name.
All right. Winners. Notre Dame women's team, number 1 in the country, first time since 2019. Tennessee baseball with their sweep over Hofstra. Texas, they get the win at home versus Kentucky. Texas had player out. Kentucky had players out. It doesn't matter. Texas still came away with the win versus Kentucky, 15th ranked team. Matt McClung, first player to be a 3-time dunk champion. He has some amazing dunks. He's never missed a dunk, and all his dunks right at 50, man. He was just really cool, creative, and fun. And then number 1.
The GOAT discussion?
Huh?
Does he enter the GOAT discussion of dunkers?
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And then, these are actually no order, these winners, but Michaela Blake sets a D1 freshman record, freshman at Vanderbilt. She goes 55 points against Auburn on the road.
My winners from the weekend, I have Mac McClung there, as you laid out everything that he was able to do. Now it's back to the G League, I suppose. But Mac McClung with the dunk contest win again. U.S. Hockey with the win against Canada.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, what I say Friday when you mentioned that? I said, oh, boy, that's going to be interesting. That's interesting, and it was.
Right. Got a lot of attention. I like that. Michaela Blake's number 3. Houston winning at Arizona. They trailed by 7-8 points pretty late in the game and then went on a big run. I put Auburn number 1, winning at Alabama, almost securing now. Yeah. We need to be careful with the word secure, but they're in a really good position. Losers, anybody who loves the All-Star game, you're not loving what they're doing now. So I think we can agree on that. Number 2, Dan Hurley. Just a couple of days after yelling at fans at Creighton, calling one of them baldy when he's bald, they go and they lay an egg over the weekend at Seton Hall. But number 1, poor Mavs fans. They can't even enjoy the All-Star break. Remember Daryl Armstrong, the point guard, he's now an assistant coach with the Mavs, was arrested over the weekend on an aggravated assault with a deadly weapon charge. Mavs fans can't even get a break during the All-Star weekend. And I feel...
Throw in Kadarius Toney in there, too.
Yeah.
Because he's in some trouble as well on the losers list.
He is, yep. All right, Swain, we did our best. We'll try again tomorrow at 12 o'clock.
All right, man. Sounds like a plan.
Thank you for hanging out with us today. Thanks, Joel Silverberg, for producing. We'll see you tomorrow at 12 o'clock right here on Josh and Swain.